Hello and welcome to the ParentNet podcast by Focus on the Family Singapore. In each podcast, we'll be tackling questions that parents are asking about family life, parenting, work life, and so much more. So join us on this journey of discovery together.
Hello and welcome to the ParentNet podcast. My name is June and I'm your host for this episode. Today we are talking about something that many parents quietly struggle with. How to support our children through the major exams like PSLE and O-levels while managing not just their stress but our own emotions too. Because let's be honest, right? When our kids feel the pressure, we feel it just as deeply. So how do we stay calm, supportive and grounded without adding to the stress? And today I'm so glad to have Jocelyn with me to unpack this together. Jocelyn is an educator and a mother of one young adult, one teenager, and one primary schooler. So 3 kids altogether. Yes. Jocelyn, it's so good to have you back on our podcast. Can you share with our listeners a bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi June. I'm currently also studying. So I think it added a bit to the stress. I'm doing a master's in counseling. So and I've been married for 26 years. So like you mentioned, I have 3 kids. So it's been quite interesting because they're all at different phases. And then having to cope with managing the angst that my second child is facing because of O-levels. So it's been quite an interesting year.
Thanks for sharing that you are also studying, right? And that probably adds to the stress within the household.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm hearing that number 2 is going through her O-levels this year. So maybe share with us one thing that has surprised you a little bit about this O-level journey so far.
Well, honestly, I thought it would not be as stressful because I have an elder one that already went through. But because no 2 kids are the same, so my eldest is pretty chill. The stress is a bit different. The stress with number 1 was more of can you study more? I'm stressed that you are not studying enough. But with number 2 was I had to deal more with the emotional regulation for herself, myself as well, because she would be, very stressed, be very overwhelmed because she's kind of like a perfectionist. So she sets very high standards for herself. So I had to help her to manage her own expectations as well.
When you talked about your child being more perfectionist, it kind of reminded me of my eldest daughter as well. You know, when she was going through her PSLE, that was quite tough because she would put very high expectations on herself, right? Just exactly as you said.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, when your number 2 is stressed or overwhelmed, how do you manage your own your own feelings in that moment as well?
I mean, to be honest, it is something I had to learn this year because I just started my course this year. So I think there was quite a bit of conflict between us because of the emotions. I was also tired, I was also stressed, and she was also feeling stressed. So, but over time, I had to learn that I guess we extend grace to each other because a lot of times she would maybe react, but I had to tell myself she's stressed. I mean, she maybe might speak in a way that I found, okay, maybe that's not so nice. But instead of coming into lecture, I had to take a step back and tell myself she is actually going through a tough time. So don't take it personally. I had to, because I realized that a lot of my frustration was because I feel like, why are you attacking me? But I realized that actually it's just her way of, because she's so stressed and so overwhelmed, she's just reacting to someone that she probably felt safe to react that way when in school she already had to put up a front, and I think she felt safe at home, and I had to just think that it's not personal.
I think those are really good points that you shared, right, Jocelyn? Like when I'm hearing that when there is a more hurt tone that's being used or when her angstiness, sort of spills out, right?
Yeah.
In the way she speaks to you, maybe a bit short in her temper as well. So there is this thing that you tell yourself, okay, I don't need to react. She's probably having a hard time herself coping. And that gives you a sense of a bit of a soothing and a bit of understanding where you can actually give her the empathy rather than say, hey, why are you behaving like this? I'm your mother.
Yep,
I'm also stressed. Right? It's not just you.
Yeah, why can't you understand me as well?
Right? Yeah. So sometimes it just requires, I guess, that step back to reflect and gain a different perspective on the situation. It's definitely not easy for the both of you, right?
Yes.
being able to understand their position. And then what I heard you say is also the let's not take it personally. It's not that she's being hateful or she doesn't appreciate me as a mom. She's just undergoing her own stress.
During this period also, I think there's also that need to reflect on our own, like as moms, like why are we reacting and all that. And I think to apologize, I softened a bit because sometimes she took the initiative to apologize. She recognized that, she was actually taking it out on me. And then I think we learned to, like I say, extend grace to each other.
That's wonderful that she took that first step to own her own mistake, right?
Yes.
And that helped you to soften up to her as well. I guess because O-levels is such a major milestone in terms of a child's academic journey, when it comes to expectations, I think many parents may want to motivate their child to study or to do their best. For your second child, I'm hearing that actually she wants to do her best.
Yes.
Right? So it's almost like you didn't have to kind of like motivate her or push her to study in that sense.
I think she was more motivated in the earlier years, maybe even lower sec. But I think because she was overwhelmed, right, I think it did affect her motivation because sometimes you're so overwhelmed, you don't know where to start or you just freeze, you're in that freeze mode.
Yes.
And so that I did have to help her work through all of these emotions so that she could be a bit more focused. Because I think the lack of motivation was a concerning thing for me because I was so used to a child that was very motivated and then like suddenly this child is so overwhelmed that she tends to procrastinate. I did have a bit of issue with that. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really helpful that you were able to see, like almost like a jigsaw puzzle, right? How come your child who used to be so motivated now is kind of procrastinating, right? And then you realize that, it's not so much that she doesn't want to do well or she's not interested. It's because she's overwhelmed. Yeah. So then you actually work with her to process and understand herself, manage her emotions of anxiety, of stress, and then that helps her to focus back on her studies.
I think a lot of conversations actually need to take place after the initial, where we had this like conflict and all that. I realized that we both need to take time to talk. And when she talks, when she opens up share, I shouldn't lecture. So it was more collaborative. Like we had to, she still needed help with scheduling. I think I was also too quick to jump to the conclusions like, you're already Sec 4, you should be able to do your own scheduling. But I realized that because she also had other activities, she was active in CCA and in church. So I think she was overwhelmed with time management as well. So it was helpful. I think she did ask for help and I had to sit down with her to kind of plan the schedule.
So there are things that sometimes we as parents, we may assume that they kind of know, right? They've been doing this for like more than half of their lives. I don't know.
Yes.
But then it was good that she was able to be open about what she needed from you. And then you could actually come in with that support. I'm just wondering because I think I hear from many parent friends out there, right, that sometimes they also have very high expectations of their children in terms of the grades and achievement, right? But I wonder at what point these expectations can become a hindrance to their child, like maybe affecting the parent-child relationship. So in these cases, how do we manage our own expectations of our children?
Firstly, you need to know your child because I did share that number 1, number 2 are very different. Number 3, still in the process of knowing, primary 3. Because there are some kids who are high achievers and they are okay, they can work in that pressure. In fact, a pressure cooker environment helps them to thrive. But I know for number 2, although she does well academically, she does not thrive in that kind of an environment and she recognizes it herself. So I think it's knowing your child. I guess what are our core convictions regarding academics? Okay, although we might have core convictions, sometimes the environment makes it shaky. Like, let me give an example. So her husband and I, our core convictions is like, you don't need to excel academically, but we do need to see you doing your best to have a good learning attitude. And that's fine because we believe if you have certain soft skills, you have resilience, you would overcome no matter what. Even might not. Maybe you're a late bloomer, you don't do so well in school now. There are other strengths. And because of certain, like say, resilience qualities you have, these will help you in life. It's not just the academics. But then recently, because we're having this conversation with my daughter about where to go, whether to go to poly or JC, right? So I think unconsciously, I did give off that thing about like, you should go to JC. Okay, because I mean, you do well academically, you should go to JC, right? But because my daughter is pretty self-aware, she feels that A-levels will be too stressful for her. Because during O-levels, she's already, emotionally, she's struggling, I mean, in that sense, right? Like coping it. So it's again conversation. I came to understand her point of view that she was someone who didn't want to study for the sake of studying alone. She likes having time for external, like she feels that life is not all about studying. Like in poly, I could maybe go for overseas attachments, internships. I could take part in a lot of different activities, community service, things like that. So she wanted a more balanced kind of education. So she felt that poly was suitable. You see, so although our core convictions are that, yeah, academics not everything, but I think, on social media, then you hear people say, JC, you should go JC. Even the teachers are saying that if you do well, you should go JC, right? So I think I was a bit shaken, and I didn't realize that I was actually persuading her towards that, because she was always saying, why do you keep sounding like you're trying to convince me to sell me the idea of going JC? So I think it does, our convictions are there, but it does get swayed from time to time.
Wow, that's so real, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can totally relate as well, as you were saying about how, we may have our core beliefs, our core convictions about what's important for our children's academic journey. But at the same time, there are times where we are like swayed by the forces around you, the things that people say, what's good, what's not good. And you brought up a very important decision point, right? About whether JC or poly. Where does your child go? I'm hearing that you didn't even realize you were kind of like pushing her and influencing her, right? Subtly towards the JC route. And she was able to point out to you like, hey, but I'm actually wanting a slightly different experience for myself. I'm hearing that here conversations are again very important, not just to be able to listen to each other's perspectives, but really creating that safe space where she can express who she is and what she wants in her own education journey, right? And that it's not just about what's so-called the tried and tested route.
And I think she also needs to own that conviction, because I think initially I was not supportive of poly, because the answer she was giving me was like, because I think poly will be easier. But I said, you can't go there into poly with that mindset. And especially like if she plans to go to uni, I think your GPA in poly has to be, if your mindset is, I choose the easier path, but when you go to poly and it's not as easy, you will be discouraged. I said, you have to come to your own conviction why you want to go poly. And the reason cannot be because it's easier.
Yeah.
And then after thinking through that, actually, because she wanted a different kind of experience and more exposure to other things besides just mugging for your A-levels.
And it's wonderful to hear that you are sort of open to your child's ideas, right? I think that really helps to bridge sometimes the differences in our expectations, between the parent and the child. So just being able to create that space where you can kind of hold on to your own beliefs lightly and be open to new ideas, because after all, our children, they have their own ideas sometimes, right? As they grow, it becomes more apparent.
Yes.
Yeah. Coming back to, what you said earlier about the importance of having a schedule, the importance of working on, these are my goals, how do I actually achieve it, right? As our children are already, if you're talking about O-levels, the child is already like 16 years old. How do we strike that balance between giving them that structure and that support, but also giving them the space to kind of figure it out themselves and take ownership of their own learning?
I think because she asked for help, so we did sit down to do a schedule together. So I said it's a collaborative effort, right? Like for her, because she was overwhelmed, so I was helping her to do it in bite size. Because sometimes when you're so unmotivated, there's so much inertia, right? You think you got to lock in 2 hours of study, it's very difficult. So we had to sit down to bite size. So okay, even if you tell yourself, let me study for 15 minutes, it's a good start. So giving her that kind of structure, but also giving her that freedom to say, okay, on Saturdays, because she goes to church and they play sports after that. And she said, okay, maybe Saturdays it's like a free day for me. But I was thinking, every day you need to study, okay, even if you study like for 1 hour is good. But she was like, no, can't be studying all the time. So I think giving her the freedom to say, okay, I plan my timetable. Okay, this is the scheduling, but this is my break day and this is where I rest, I do what I enjoy. So it motivates me to continue.
You have a daughter who knows what she needs.
Yes, okay. She's very expressive about it. So that's why. Yeah.
I mean, it's good, right? You give her that space to express who she is, her preferences, to have one full rest day where she can really give herself that mental and physical break and then be motivated to come back to it.
Yes.
Perhaps every child is, wired differently. There may be children who are less wanting their own space and freedom to craft how they want to do this. So maybe they require more hand-holding, right? Maybe they are not as motivated. They may require you to help to support them in that area, right? But then there are others who are quite motivated on top of their work, right? Who just require that little bit of encouragement and nudging.
I'm thinking about tuition, right? Because that's where the structured studying comes in. I feel that because having, say, my first child and second child are very different. The first child had a lot of tuition. I mean, because maybe first child, you tend to be more protective. But I realized then there was a flip side to it, that the child then depended on tuition. It became like, oh, I have tuition, so I don't really need to pay attention in class. So I think there's a balance that needs to be there and understanding how it affects your child.
I guess, with that in mind, then maybe the goals are also slightly different. As the child grows, maybe understanding that there could be this reliance, then maybe it's about how do we wean off in maybe one subject where actually you are on track already. You just need to kind of set your own little milestones to make sure you're keeping consistent, right? So Jocelyn, thank you so much for sharing your insights on how to help our children to manage the major exams stress. And it's really encouraging to hear that really it's through conversations and giving your child that safe space to share with you what's important to them, right? To be able to express who they are. I'm hearing that a lot from your story. So thank you so much. Before we let you go, do you have any last words of advice for other parents who might be also going through the PSLE or the O-levels this year?
One thing we might forget is affirmation, because my very vocal daughter expressed it recently because she was I think I was criticizing on something that she didn't do, because she's supposed to do it, but she didn't do it. Then she says how come when I do something that I managed to do it, you just say, you acknowledge it, you're okay, but you don't affirm me for it, but you highlight what I don't do. So I reflected, actually it's really true. That is a good reminder for myself, for all of us, that when we catch them doing something, really motivated, studying, finishing their schedule, whatever on task, we should not just acknowledge, but really say something encouraging. Also can reward them. I do some rewards I don't know, bubble tea. Okay, not too much of it, it's too much sugar, but some things that she likes, it does help.
That's wonderful. So affirmation is something that our children really need, right? And especially during these tougher years where it's really just grinding and reaching that final point where they really need our affirmation and presence. That it's not just show me the grades, right? But I really see that you have put in effort in this. I really appreciate you for even going out of your comfort zone to finish this chore or to spend time with the family even though you're so busy. So it's wonderful. Thank you, Jocelyn, once again. And to our listeners out there, if you're interested to discover more parenting resources, do visit our website at family.org.sg. And that's all we have for today. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. Do keep tuning in to the ParentNet podcast to learn and grow in your parenting journey.